The real estate agent's hands trembled as she handed me the listing agreement at 3:47 p.m. on November 23rd, her voice barely a whisper. "Mr. Chun, I'm so sorry, but your son already accepted an offer on your house. They close in 5 days." Behind her, my son Kevin stood smirking in my living room, completely unaware that in exactly 72 hours, his entire life would implode, taking his marriage, his business, and the $4.2 million inheritance he was counting on with it. My name is George Chun, and at 68 years old, after building a technology consulting empire from a borrowed $5,000 into a company worth $47 million, I discovered that my only son had been plotting to have me declared incompetent and steal everything I had worked for. What he didn't know was that I had been playing chess while he was playing checkers, and I was about to deliver checkmate. The betrayal had been brewing for months, hidden behind fake concern and family dinners. Kevin had always been ambitious. I'd admired that about him when he was younger. After getting his MBA from Wharton, which I paid for, naturally, he'd started his own digital marketing agency. I'd been his first investor, putting in $500,000 to help him get started. For a while, things seemed good between us. The changes started after my wife Linda passed away from a stroke 3 years ago. Kevin began dropping by more often, but not out of concern for my grief. He'd walk through the house like he was appraising it, making comments about all this space for one person, and suggesting I might be happier somewhere smaller. "Dad, this place is too much for you," he'd say, running his hand along the marble countertops in the kitchen. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, that huge backyard. When's the last time you even went in the pool? I'd brush off his comments, but I noticed things. He'd take photos of different rooms when he thought I wasn't looking. He brought his wife Sarah over, and I'd catch them whispering in corners, pointing at artwork and furniture. Once, I overheard Sarah say, "The Zillow estimate is way off. This place has to be worth at least $3 million. The first real red flag came in September. Kevin suggested we have lunch at Morton's Steakhouse, his treat, which should have warned me something was up. Over a $400 meal, he pulled out a folder of brochures. "Dad, I've been researching senior living communities," he said, spreading glossy pamphlets across the table. "These places are incredible, like living in a resort. Golf courses, swimming pools, organized activities. You'd make so many friends." I picked up one of the brochures. "Sunset Manor, starting at $8,000 a month," I read aloud. "Kevin, I have friends. I have activities. I have a home." His face hardened slightly. "Dad, be realistic. You're 68. You've had 2 minor falls this year. I tripped over a garden hose," I interrupted. "Hardly a medical emergency." "And what about when I found you confused in the garage last month? I was looking for my socket wrench set. You borrowed it and put it back in the wrong place." Kevin leaned forward, his expression shifting to what he probably thought looked like concern but came across as calculating. "Dad, we need to think about the future. What happens when you have a real fall? What if you forget to take your medication? What if you leave the stove on? What if I live my life without my son treating me like a toddler?" I shot back. The lunch ended badly, with Kevin muttering about my stubbornness and denial. But I knew this wasn't over. Kevin had inherited his mother's determination, but none of her compassion. When he wanted something, he didn't give up. What I didn't know was that he'd already put his plan in motion. The next warning came from my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. She'd lived next door for 20 years and didn't miss much from her kitchen window. "George, I don't mean to pry," she said one October morning, "but there was a young woman here yesterday taking pictures of your house. She said she was a real estate agent. I told her the house wasn't for sale, and she said she was just doing preliminary assessment for the owner's son." My blood ran cold. What did she look like? Mrs. Patterson described her perfectly. Rebecca Martinez from Coldwell Banker, the agent who'd sold Kevin his own house. I thanked Mrs. Patterson and went inside to make some calls. My lawyer, David Kim, had been my friend since our days at Berkeley. When I told him what was happening, he wasn't surprised. I've seen this before, George. Adult children getting impatient for their inheritance. How much does Kevin know about your finances? He knows I'm comfortable. He doesn't know specifics. Keep it that way. And George? Document everything. Every conversation, every visit, every strange incident. Start a journal. I took David's advice. I also did something else. I installed security cameras throughout my house, inside and out. Not the obvious ones, but tiny, discreet cameras that looked like smoke detectors, air fresheners, and picture frames. If Kevin was plotting something, I wanted evidence. The documentation proved invaluable. Over the next month, the cameras captured Kevin letting himself in when he thought I wasn't home. He'd go through my papers, photograph documents, and even brought a contractor through to measure rooms. The contractor, caught on audio, asked, "Your dad knows about the renovation plans?" Kevin's response chilled me. "He will when it's appropriate. Right now, we're just planning for the transition." But the worst betrayal came on November 20th, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I'd been at my doctor's office for a routine checkup when my phone buzzed with a security alert. Someone was in my home office. I opened the app to see Kevin at my desk with someone I didn't recognize, a woman in a suit holding a folder. As I watched in real time, she pulled out documents and placed them in front of Kevin. "This power of attorney will give you full control over his assets," she said. "But we'll need his signature. Has the doctor provided the incompetency evaluation yet?" "Next week," Kevin replied. "Dr. Morrison says Dad's showing clear signs of cognitive decline. The confusion, the falls, the paranoia about people being in his house, it's textbook dementia." "Perfect. Once we have the medical documentation, we can move forward. The house is already generating interest. My client is willing to pay $2.8 million cash. Quick close." "That's below market," Kevin said. "It's a fast, clean sale. No inspections, no contingencies. You said speed was important." "It is. Once Dad's in Sunset Manor, we can clean this place out. Most of his stuff is junk anyway, old man collections and outdated furniture. My junk included original Ansel Adams photographs, a wine collection worth $200,000, and outdated furniture that included authentic mid-century modern pieces. But the real treasure Kevin didn't know about was the Salvador Dali painting in my bedroom, a gift from a client in the 1990s, now worth approximately $3.2 million. I sat in my car in the doctor's parking lot, watching my son plan to steal my life. The woman, who I now realized was a lawyer, continued explaining the process. "Once you have power of attorney, transferring the house is simple. We'll need to move other assets too, bank accounts, investment portfolios, everything. It's best if it's all in your control before he realizes what's happening." "He won't realize," Kevin said confidently. "Dad trusts me. He's old, confused, and alone. It's really for his own good. That house is too big, and he's sitting on millions he'll never spend. Why should it wait until he dies? I have a business to grow, kids to put through college." "Speaking of the business," the lawyer said, "your father's company shares?" 47% ownership, Kevin confirmed. "Worth about $20 million at current valuation. The bylaws require board approval for transfer unless he's declared incompetent. Which Dr. Morrison will handle." "Exactly. By Christmas, Dad will be safe in assisted living, and I'll be managing his assets properly." I'd seen enough. I drove home slowly, my mind racing. Kevin wasn't just trying to take my house, he was orchestrating a complete takeover of everything I'd built. And he'd corrupted my doctor in the process. But Kevin had made a crucial mistake. He assumed I was as helpless as he kept telling people I was. He assumed that age meant weakness, that solitude meant vulnerability, that trust meant stupidity. He was wrong on all counts. That night, I called David Kim. How quickly can you set up an irrevocable trust? How irrevocable are we talking? Titanium-clad, lawyer-proof, sun-proof, irrevocable. I want every asset protected. I can have documents ready by tomorrow. George, what's happening? I sent him the security footage. There was silence on the other end for a long moment after he watched it. Jesus Christ, George. Your own son. My own son. Can you also get me a new doctor? Seems mine has been bought. I'll have names for you within an hour. George, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be thorough. I want this airtight. Over the next 2 days, I moved with the efficiency that had built my empire. The irrevocable trust was established with David and 2 other trustees. Every asset, the house, the company shares, the investment accounts, the art collection, everything was transferred into the trust with specific instructions. Kevin was listed as a beneficiary, but with conditions so strict he'd need to become a saint to access a penny. The conditions included maintaining employment for 10 consecutive years, performing 1,000 hours of documented community service, passing annual drug tests, and most importantly, having no involvement in any attempt to have me declared incompetent or to take control of my assets without my written consent. The trust documents also included a poison pill. If anyone attempted to challenge my mental competency, their beneficiary status would be immediately revoked and their share distributed to charity. I also did something else. I hired a private investigator to dig into Dr. Morrison. What he found was a pattern. Elderly patients suddenly diagnosed with dementia, their assets transferred to family members, and Dr. Morrison's bank account showing mysterious deposits. By Thanksgiving Day, everything was in place. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait. Kevin arrived at my house at noon on Thanksgiving with Sarah and their 2 kids. He was in an exceptionally good mood, practically bouncing as he carved the turkey I'd prepared. "Dad, this looks amazing," he said, playing the devoted son. "You know, this might be one of our last Thanksgivings in this house." "Oh," I said mildly. "Are you moving?" He laughed. "No, Dad. But you might be. Actually, that's something we wanted to talk to you about." Here it comes, I thought. Sarah cleared her throat. "George, we're worried about you. Living alone in this big house, at your age." "I'm 68, not 98, I said. "But the falls, the confusion," Kevin pressed. "Dr. Morrison is concerned." "Is he?" "That's interesting, since my appointment with him isn't until next week." Kevin's face froze for a moment. "He mentioned he'd been reviewing your file." "How thorough of him." Kevin pushed forward. "Dad, we've found a beautiful senior community. Sunset Manor. It has everything you could want, medical staff, activities, people your own age. You'd be so much happier there." "And my house?" "Well, it's too big for you. We could sell it, use the money to pay for your care. The rest would be invested for your future needs." "Invested by whom?" "I'd handle it, of course. I have your best interests at heart." I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had the little boy who used to build rocket ships out of cardboard boxes become this calculating stranger? "Kevin," I said quietly, "do you remember when you were 10 and wanted that telescope for Christmas? The really expensive one." He looked confused by the change of subject. "Yeah, the Celestron. You got it for me. I worked 3 extra contracts to afford it. 60-hour weeks for 2 months. You used it exactly twice." "Dad, what does that have to do with Dash?" "Everything," I cut him off. "You've always wanted things, Kevin. And I've always given them to you. But this time, you want something that isn't mine to give. It's mine to live in." His mask dropped completely. "Dad, be reasonable. You're getting old. You need help. We're trying to do what's best for you." No, you're trying to do what's best for you. Tell me, what's the commission on a $2.8 million cash sale? Must be enough to expand your agency nicely. Kevin went pale. How did you dash? I may be old, Kevin, but I'm not stupid. I know about Rebecca Martinez. I know about the cash buyer. I know about the lawyer and the power of attorney documents. I know about Dr. Morrison and his interesting diagnosis. I know everything. The silence in the dining room was deafening. Even the kids had stopped fidgeting. Sarah tried to salvage the situation. George, I think there's been a misunderstanding, Dash. The only misunderstanding, I said, standing up, is that you thought I'd roll over and let you steal my life. The house isn't for sale. I'm not going to Sunset Manor. And Dr. Morrison won't be my doctor much longer, especially after the medical board reviews his interesting banking records. Kevin stood too, his face red. You can't stop this, Dad. I have Dr. Morrison's evaluation. You're showing clear signs of dementia. Am I? Let's test that theory. I pulled out my phone and called David Kim, putting him on speaker. David, could you explain to my son about the trust? David's voice was clear and professional. Mr. Chun, as of November 22nd at 9 a.m., all of George Chen's assets have been placed in an irrevocable trust. This includes the residence at 1847 Maple Drive, all investment accounts, company shares, and personal property. George retains lifetime residency and control, but no assets can be sold, transferred, or encumbered without the unanimous consent of 3 trustees. That's not legal. Kevin sputtered. He wasn't competent to make that decision. On the contrary, David continued, George underwent comprehensive cognitive testing with Dr. Helen Ramirez on November 21st. She found him to be in excellent mental health with above-average cognitive function for his age. Her report has been filed with the court. I smiled at Kevin's stunned expression. Dr. Ramirez is head of geriatric psychiatry at Stanford Medical. Slightly more credible than Dr. Morrison, wouldn't you say? You can't do this. Kevin shouted, his careful composure completely shattered. That's my inheritance. I'm your son. Were you my son when you called me a confused old man? Were you my son when you tried to sell my house out from under me? Were you my son when you conspired with a corrupt doctor to have me declared incompetent? I was trying to help you. You were trying to help yourself to my money. Well, congratulations, Kevin. You just helped yourself right out of $4.2 million. His face went white. What? Your trust fund. The one your mother and I set up when you were born. It was supposed to be yours when I died, or when you turned 50, whichever came first. But it had conditions, specifically, that you never attempt to gain control of my assets through manipulation or legal maneuvering. I pulled out a document and placed it on the table. This is a letter from the trustee. Your beneficiary status was revoked as of this morning. The funds will be distributed to the Linda Chen Memorial Scholarship Fund for first-generation college students. Sarah grabbed the letter, her face cycling through shock, rage, and despair as she read. $4.2 million? You had a $4.2 million trust fund and you never told me. Kevin couldn't speak. He stared at the letter like it might change if he looked hard enough. But wait, I said, channeling my inner infomercial host, there's more. Rebecca Martinez? Her real estate license is under review for ethics violations. Seems attempting to list someone's house without their permission is frowned upon. Your lawyer friend? The Bar Association is very interested in her attempted elder fraud. And Dr. Morrison? Well, let's just say he'll have plenty of time to think about his choices when he's not practicing medicine anymore. You destroyed everything, Kevin whispered. No, son. You destroyed everything. I just documented it. Sarah stood up, grabbing her purse. We're leaving. Kids, get your coats. Sarah, wait. Kevin started. No, she snapped. You told me this was a sure thing. You said your dad was losing it, that we'd have the house by Christmas. You cost us $4 million with your greed. It's not my fault. He tricked me. He didn't trick you, Kevin. He let you show your true colors. And they're ugly. She turned to me. I'm sorry, George. I didn't know it would go this far. I believed her. Sarah was guilty of greed, not cruelty. Take care of my grandchildren, Sarah. They're welcome here any time, without their father. As they gathered their things, Kevin made one last attempt. Dad, please. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Can't we talk about this? We just did. And Kevin? That real estate agent who came to my door? She brought the listing agreement you'd already signed. You accepted an offer on MY House. That's fraud. David tells me the district attorney is very interested in pressing charges. You'd send your own son to jail? I'm not sending you anywhere. You sent yourself there when you decided I was too old and feeble to fight back. Surprise, son. I built a $47 million company by being smarter than everyone else in the room. You think that changes because I got older? They left in chaos, Sarah furious, the kids confused, Kevin broken. I stood in my doorway and watched them drive away, feeling something I hadn't expected, relief. The house felt different with them gone. Lighter somehow. I went back inside and called Mrs. Patterson. Martha? It's George. Would you like to come over for Thanksgiving dinner? I seem to have a lot of extra food. She arrived 20 minutes later with her famous pumpkin pie. As we ate, I told her everything. She listened with the patience of someone who'd seen every form of human nature in her 77 years. You know what the saddest part is, she said finally. He had everything. A successful father who loved him, money for education, help starting his business. And he threw it all away because it wasn't enough. Greed is a terrible disease, I agreed. And it's usually fatal to relationships. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Sarah filed for divorce within a week, citing Kevin's deception about their finances. Without the trust fund he'd been counting on, Kevin couldn't afford to fight it. She got the house, the kids, and what little savings they had. His business collapsed next. Turns out he'd been borrowing against his expected inheritance to fund expansion. When the loans came due and the inheritance evaporated, so did his company. His employees scattered, his clients fled, and his reputation in the digital marketing world was destroyed. Dr. Morrison lost his medical license after investigators found 17 other elderly patients who'd been falsely diagnosed with dementia. He faced criminal charges and civil lawsuits that would drain whatever wealth he'd accumulated from his scheme. The lawyer was disbarred and faced charges of conspiracy to commit elder fraud. Rebecca Martinez lost her real estate license and was sued by her brokerage for damaging their reputation. As for the house Kevin tried to steal, I still live here. Every morning, I swim in the pool he said I never used. Every evening, I sit in the garden he thought was too much for me to maintain. On Sundays, Mrs. Patterson and I play cards in the dining room where Kevin announced I was too old to live alone. But I wasn't entirely heartless. I set up education trusts for my grandchildren, ones that bypass their parents entirely. They'll have college paid for, if they want it. They'll have opportunities, but not entitlements. Kevin tried to contact me several times over the following months. Letters of apology, emails begging for forgiveness, voicemails promising he'd changed. I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say? He'd shown me who he really was, and I'd believed him. A year later, I ran into him at a coffee shop. He was wearing a cheap suit, looking 10 years older, working on a laptop with a "looking for work" sticker on it. He saw me and froze. "Dad," he said quietly. I looked at him, really looked at him. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been genuine humility. But it was too late for that. "I'm not your dad," I said. "I'm just an old man who's too confused to remember having a son." I left him there with his coffee and his consequences. Mrs. Patterson asked me once if I regretted destroying Kevin's life. "I didn't destroy anything," I told her. "I just refused to let him destroy mine. He made every choice that led him here. All I did was protect myself." "But he's your son." "No. My son was the boy who built rocket ships and dreamed of the stars. That person is gone, replaced by someone who saw me as nothing more than a bank account with a pulse. I'm mourning the son I lost, not punishing the stranger he became." It's been 2 years now since that Thanksgiving. The house is paid off, the trust is secure, and I've never been happier. I volunteer at the senior center, not as a resident, but as a teacher, sharing my business expertise with others starting their golden years. I travel when I want, where I want, without asking anyone's permission. Dr. Ramirez, who became my new physician, tells me I have the cognitive function of someone 20 years younger. "Whatever you're doing, George, keep it up. Your mind is sharp as a tack." What I'm doing is living proof that age doesn't mean weakness, that trust shouldn't be blind, that family isn't a license to steal, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim. Kevin's probably out there somewhere, telling anyone who'll listen about his cruel father who cut him off over a misunderstanding. Let him. The people who matter know the truth. The security footage made great evidence in Sarah's divorce proceedings, and she made sure their social circle saw it all. The house he tried to steal? I've willed it to a charity that helps elderly people defend against financial exploitation by family members. It'll be converted into offices and counseling space, helping other seniors avoid what almost happened to me. The irony isn't lost on me. The house Kevin wanted so badly will end up protecting people from people like Kevin. But perhaps the sweetest revenge came last month. I was at a charity gala for the senior center when the mayor announced a new initiative, the George Chin Center for Elder Advocacy, funded by an anonymous $10 million donation. The center will provide free legal services to seniors facing financial exploitation. The anonymous donor? Me, of course. But I made sure the press release mentioned it was funded by a successful entrepreneur who recently protected his own assets from attempted theft by family members. Kevin would know it was about him. Everyone in his former social circle would know. The Chin name would forever be associated not with his business success, but with his attempted elder fraud. As I stood there accepting the mayor's thanks, I thought about Kevin's words, "You're too old to live alone." Maybe he was right. I was too old to live alone, with snakes in my own home. Too old to waste time on people who saw me as a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. Too old to pretend that DNA creates obligations that override basic human decency. But too old to fight back? Too old to protect myself? Too old to teach a greedy son that actions have consequences? Never. The security system Kevin never knew about still runs, upgraded now with AI features that can detect unusual behavior patterns. My lawyers have instructions to release all footage if anything suspicious happens to me. My doctor provides quarterly cognitive assessments that are filed with the court. My assets are protected by more legal barriers than Fort Knox. Because Kevin taught me something valuable. The people who should protect you can become the ones you need protection from. The son who should care for you in your old age might instead see your age as an opportunity. The family that should surround you with love might instead surround your assets with greed. But he also taught me this: I'm not as alone as he thought. Mrs. Patterson checks on me daily, not because she's paid to, but because we're friends. The seniors at the center respect me not for my money, but for my knowledge. Dr. Ramirez treats me not as a potential commission, but as a human being deserving of dignity. Real connections aren't based on blood or legal obligations. They're based on mutual respect, genuine care, and the understanding that every person, regardless of age, deserves to live their life on their own terms. Kevin wanted my house because he saw it as wasted on an old man. But this house isn't just property, it's proof. Proof that I built something from nothing. Proof that I loved and was loved. Proof that I lived a life worth living. And I'm still living it. Every morning when I wake up in the bedroom Kevin photographed for his quick sale, I smile. Every breakfast I eat in the kitchen he measured for renovations tastes a little sweeter. Every lap in the pool he said I never used feels like a victory. Because I didn't just keep my house. I kept my dignity. My autonomy. My right to decide how I live and where I live and when, if ever, I choose to change that. Kevin's living in a one-bedroom apartment now, working as a freelance consultant, rebuilding the life he destroyed with his greed. Sarah remarried, a pediatrician who values family over finances. My grandchildren visit me monthly, learning that Grandpa isn't the confused old man their father described, but the sharp businessman who built an empire and protected it. Sometimes they ask why their dad doesn't come with them. I tell them the truth, age-appropriate but honest. Sometimes people make choices that hurt others. When that happens, we have to protect ourselves, even from people we love. They're learning what Kevin never did, that respect isn't optional, that age isn't weakness, and that trying to take advantage of someone's trust is the quickest way to lose everything. The house stands as a monument to that lesson. Every brick Kevin tried to steal, every room he tried to empty, every memory he tried to erase, they're all still here. Still mine. Still proof that being too old is a state of mind, not a surrender of rights. And if Kevin drives by sometimes, looking at the house that cost him $4.2 million and his family, if he regrets choosing greed over gratitude, if he wishes he could go back and be the son I deserved instead of the thief he became, well, that's his burden to carry. I've got a pool to swim in, a garden to tend, and a life to live. In my own house. On my own terms. For as long as I damn well please. Because I may be old, but I'm not too old to fight for what's mine. I'm not too old to recognize betrayal. And I'm definitely not too old to serve justice ice cold to anyone who thinks otherwise. The trust fund Kevin lost? It's funded full scholarships for 47 first-generation college students so far. Kids who might have been told they were too poor, too disadvantaged, too anything to succeed. They're proving, like I proved, that what others see as limitations can become launching pads. Each scholarship recipient gets a letter explaining that it's funded by someone who refused to let others define his limitations. They don't need to know the ugly details, just the beautiful result, that standing up for yourself can create opportunities for others. Kevin created those scholarships through his greed. It's the only good thing to come from his betrayal, and he doesn't even know it. The Linda Chun Memorial Fund grows every year, turning his attempted theft into thousands of changed lives. That's justice. Not just protecting what's mine, but transforming an attack into advancement for others. Not just keeping my house, but building futures for strangers who'll never try to steal from me because they're too busy building their own dreams. The house Kevin wanted so badly? It's hosted 17 scholarship recipients for dinner. They sit at the table where he announced I was too old to live alone and share their dreams, their struggles, their successes. They see not a confused old man but a mentor who overcame betrayal with grace and generosity. One of them, Maria, is in medical school now. She wants to specialize in elder care. Mr. Chun, she told me, you showed me that getting older doesn't mean getting weaker. It means getting wiser. I want to protect people like you from people like... She didn't finish, but we both knew what she meant. From people like Kevin. From family members who see dollar signs instead of human beings. From those who mistake trust for stupidity and age for weakness. Maria and the others are my true legacy. Not the money Kevin wanted or the house he tried to steal, but the lives changed because I refused to be a victim. The futures funded by his forfeited millions. The dreams made possible by his greed. So yes, I'm too old to live alone, if living alone means having no impact, leaving no legacy, making no difference. But that's not how I live. I live surrounded by the gratitude of scholarship recipients, the respect of my peers, and the knowledge that I turned betrayal into blessing for others. And I'll keep living that way in my house on my terms, until the day I die. Which, despite Kevin's best efforts, isn't anytime soon. The boy who built rocket ships would be ashamed of the man who tried to steal his father's house. But somewhere in that cheap apartment, maybe Kevin sometimes remembers that boy. Maybe he wonders how he traveled so far from those cardboard dreams to real estate schemes. Maybe he realizes that in trying to take everything from me, he lost everything that mattered. Or maybe not. Maybe he's still bitter, still angry, still convinced he was right to try to lock me away and loot my life. That's his choice, just like every other choice that led him here. But I choose differently. I choose to wake up grateful for another day in my home. I choose to swim, to garden, to live fully and freely. I choose to help others rather than hurt family. I choose dignity over defeat, purpose over pity, strength over surrender. Because I'm George Chun. I built an empire from $5,000 and determination. I survived my wife's death without losing my mind. I protected my assets from my own son's assault. And I'm still here. Still strong. Still sharp. Still absolutely, definitively, defiantly not too old to live exactly where and how I choose. The house stands as proof. Every sunrise through these windows Kevin wanted to sell, every sunset in this garden he called too much trouble, every single day in this space he tried to steal, they all say the same thing. I won. Not because I kept my house, but because I kept my humanity. Not because I punished my son, but because I protected myself. Not because I'm wealthy, but because I'm wise enough to know that wealth means nothing without the freedom to enjoy it. Kevin bet everything on me being too old to fight back. He lost that bet. And I'll keep collecting on it every day I wake up in my own bed, in my own house, living my own life. Too old? Not even close. Not then. Not now. Not ever. The house that Kevin tried to steal isn't just my home anymore. It's my victory. My vindication. My daily reminder that age is just a number, but betrayal is forever. Thank you for listening to today's story of justice served cold. If it resonated with you, share your thoughts below. Look at your screen right now. 2 more stories are waiting for you, each one proving that karma always keeps the receipts. Hit the notification bell. Tomorrow's revelation will leave you speechless. Remember, respect your elders, or become the next cautionary tale.